So in March, my company was nominated for a very prestigious National Innovation Award for this technological breakthrough we had been working on very quietly for a couple of years. And now, all of a sudden, we were in the big pond. We had to tell in a month the story of this geeky R&D project. Okay, so Velco, that was us. We were one of 8 nominees nationally out of 3,000 utility companies. Little Vermont was on this national stage. Electric power is a very conservative industry. Thomas Edison would actually recognize a lot of the equipment we use. But like most industries, we are in the middle of disruption, and Velco is trying to ride that wave, not resist it, in 2 areas. The first one is the weather. So we have more frequent, more severe storms, people without power for days. In that right picture, a transmission line was wiped out when the Cold River actually changed course in Hurricane Irene. That had never happened before. Something had to be done about the weather. And then there is the renewables revolution, growing exponentially in Vermont, and we have a policy goal of 90% renewable energy by 2050, which is driving it higher. Renewables make us more independent, resilient, sustainable, but they only make power when the sun shines and the wind blows, and they're mostly invisible to the operators of the grid. So without better ways of predicting their output, they run fossil fuel generation just to be on the safe side. So we undertook this research and development project in partnership with IBM and others. And we made a huge breakthrough that combines the most precise weather forecasting in the world with the detailed model of Vermont's electric system, the Vermont Weather Analytics Center. It predicts renewable energy up to 97% accuracy and local weather down to 1 square kilometer. So now we have 1 month to produce a 3-minute video and a 12-page book that will tell this big data story in a compelling way. So to convince the judges that ours is the most important project, the scientists send us their idea of the storyboard. This was it. We found out that scientists should stick to science. So we had captured the nominators' imaginations, but the judges were these former utility executives with very different ideas about how to face the future. And our strategy was to communicate how we were going to change the world, not just the utility world. As a storyteller, I was convinced that the only way to win this was to treat this as storytelling, to find that essence of the story, and to figure out what the audience needed to feel. And that's when I found Art Bell and Dreamlike Pictures. Art said to us, "We are on the side of your audience." Well, that was a leap of faith for us to go into a production without knowing what the end product was going to look like in this documentary style. And Art just asked us, "Are you willing to let me tell this story?" And I went with my gut. So what was the essence of this story? Imagine how life would be different if you could actually trust the weather forecast. I mean, the weather forecast right here. So we had lived with this project for 2 years, but telling this story helped us realize that core meaning. Art went off to absorb the research, and me and my team started working on the book that was going to have to explain the science to support the video work. But at the end, they had to come together even though we had worked independently. We interviewed 5 people in a documentary style. I talked with them at length, but Art had never met them. And each interview was this spontaneous but prepared work that really gave the passion that these people had brought to the project. It was really an embarrassment of riches. The chief scientist was in India at the time of that we were shooting, and we had to actually use footage from another project. And poor Scott Rogers, that guy on the right, gave us this golden interview we had to leave on the cutting room floor. You know, that old expression about writing, that sometimes you have to kill your darlings. Well, that was what happened in that case. And thank goodness for found footage, because in that compressed time frame of a month, we had no time for the renewable shots and the Vermont landscape porn that we needed for the B-roll. And we had many friends who came up with footage that we used in the final product. The biggest challenge was that we had these beautiful animations that came out of the Weather Center itself, and in 3 minutes, we couldn't figure out how to explain to the viewer what they meant. So it came down to a couple of shots with pithy captions, and in the end, it was really the people's voices that gave the passion. Art always says you have to start with the last shot. There was never any question what the last shot would be. This young engineer from Vermont Electric Co-op said it best. The tool we created can see the future, and that has the power to change the world. Sorry to say, a construction project won. But we were told that our book and video submission were the best they had ever seen, and this national visibility launched the project to a whole new level. In the end, the act of telling the story turned out to have a power way beyond this competition. Thank you.